So little known truth, if you're in trouble politically or otherwise, I guess, you come out to respond, just keep saying damn. And that helps erase the controversy. Just damn, God, no, didn't happen, damn it. Here's Tim Walz and an example of said use of the D word.
These guys are even attacking me for my record of service. And I just want to say, I'm proud to serve my country, and I always will be. I signed up for the Army National Guard 2 days after my 17th birthday. I served for the next 24 years for the same reason all my brothers and sisters in uniform do. We love this country. Then in 2005, I felt the call of duty again, this time of being service to my country in the halls of Congress. My students inspired me to run for that office, and I was proud to make it to Washington. I was a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee and a champion of our men and women in uniform. I'm going to say it again as clearly as I can. I am damn proud of my service to this country, and I firmly believe you should never denigrate another person's service record. To anyone brave enough to put on that uniform for our great country, including my opponent, I just have a few simple words. Thank you for your service and sacrifice.
Damn. Does that?
Damn.
And by the way, just, apropos of nothing, it's very wrong to question anybody's service at all, even if there are whole sorts of reasons. Like Bo Bergdahl doesn't matter. Dude, you're the problem. Yeah. You're the problem, guys.
It's very bad to question anyone's service, especially mine. Please don't do that. Thank you.
You're a bad person. I mean,
I do have to say I really enjoyed his response to this litany of charges, because all the charges said Tim is not proud. And he said, no, I am proud. No, you're not proud. It's like, literally, that's not the question. There are lots of questions about your service, some of which I think are overblown, some of which I think that you really have to respond to. Mm-hmm. But to say, damn, I'm proud, it's like, yeah, this is not a pride parade. Nobody said that you weren't proud. People said you're a bit dodgy about how you've actually handled this. And, the thing I think that sticks the most is the number of people from his unit who have come out and said, well, he bailed before the deployment to Iraq. I think that's something that you should respond to, particularly because there's people in your unit it's not just political operative, it's not just Oppo research, who have said that this is, wasn't the best thing in the world. So respond to it.
And also that's the only thing that actually attacks his service or questions his service. Everything else is attack might be even the wrong word. It's just saying the way that he characterized his service, either directly or kind of as he makes comments about using weapons in war, sounded hyperbolic or exaggerated. And so it's depictions of your service, not your actual service. So this, and this happens every single time that anyone gets questioned. Also, George W. Bush back when Dan Rather was hound dogging him, and it happens all the time. They always retreat to like, "How dare you question my service?" So I understand it as a purely defensive mechanism, but that's not even like more than about 10 or 15% of the actual criticism, which is about his depictions. Like, clean that up, and they have cleaned some of that up kind of on the sly, kind of edited things post facto. And I doubt, because their model is to not actually engage with questions from journalists or other potential critics. So I doubt that they'll address that correctly. But if you actually wanted to address it, he would address forthrightly the way that he's depicted his service in the past and how it sometimes felt a bit exaggerated.
I just want to add one thing to that, because I do think, okay, fine, maybe we can get away with saying I served in war with these guns was a misspeak, but there's been a pattern. We would discuss this. There's been a pattern of him saying I served in Operation Enduring Freedom. That was the Afghanistan war, when he didn't. So if I'd give him one, and we're all human, but there's a pattern. But the second point I want to make is overstating your rank is a hard no. He's been overstating his rank. I mean, people can understand this. If I came to you and said I was a colonel and I was only a private, everybody would get that. That would be absolutely egregious. You're not allowed to do that. You didn't earn it. Other guys did. They put in the time. You didn't. And that's what he's doing when he says he's a retired command sergeant major, which is an E9, and he only ever made it to E8. They gave him that title provisionally. He served in it temporarily because he had signed a long-term renewal with the National Guard, and they thought he'd earn it. But he didn't. He quit early. He never did the training that would require him to actually earn that rank. And he knows that. But for all the years From 2005 forward, he's been calling himself a retired command sergeant major, which he isn't. And he knows that. And the paperwork to prove the demotion from that temporary higher title is all over the internet. He can't deny it. He doesn't deny it. He's just been lying about it. And now that he's caught, it's really wrong to question somebody's service, Kmele.
I mean, the details of this controversy are sufficiently nebulous that it kind of helps Walz a little bit, because it takes a little bit to understand all of those moving parts. But I do think that the way he's handling this controversy is an excellent illustration of exactly the advantage that the Harris campaign is able to gain by completely avoiding the press. I mean, it is a very different thing. And I've heard people like Michael Steele on MSNBC suggest that, look, she doesn't need to talk to the press. She's having a conversation with the American people. Going from city to city, giving the same canned stump speech, or going up on stage and effectively waving your hands around, saying, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm so proud of my service, while not addressing any of the material questions about your military record, or really your pattern of, if I'm going to be generous, misstatements, but misstatements that always run in the direction of overstating what you seem to do while you were in service. It's completely legitimate to ask you questions about that. What I think is far less legitimate is this obvious, like, self-serving proclivity on the part of the Harris campaign to just avoid the media so that they can get away with doing stuff like this.
Yeah, they're doing this. They're taking this approach because they know they can get away with it. They know the press is not going to say, we demand answers on whether this is a case of stolen valor, and get in his face everywhere to the point where he would have to give an interview over it, right? Like, get in his face, like they did at JD Vance over the cat comments.
Sure.
It was all over the media. They were sticking mics into his face, demanding that he comment on it. So he did give several interviews, here first and then elsewhere, and answered the questions about it. This guy, nothing. And now today, you've got this extraordinary piece. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was posted at the Federalist by someone who calls himself Cynical Publius. And this is a pseudonym, obviously, of a retired U.S. Army officer who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne Division. And the Federalist notes that they do verify the identities of those who publish with them anonymously. So they know this is a real person and this is actually a vet. But this person chooses, for reasons we don't know, not to publish under his own name. God only knows with military guys, what their backgrounds are. One never knows. And whether they have safety reasons for not saying their actual names. Here's what he says. The ignominy of master, is it ignominy? Ignominy?
Ignominy.
Yeah, who knows?
It's a tough one. Of Master Sergeant Timothy Walz. Like, shame. The shame. Let's go with shame. He writes that his X account has seen the most traffic it's ever seen, as he's discussed this issue on it at length. He writes, he knows firsthand that the veteran community is fired up over this issue. But he senses from the non-vet community that many do not know what to think, given the competing arguments from both sides of the political aisle. It's exactly what the mainstream press wants. They do this on every issue. That's how we began our show on Monday. Tim Walz isn't Tampon Tim. He didn't mandate. Yes, he did. Like, Megyn Kelly did not text XY. Yes, he did. Like, all these things, they just try to no, it's not true. It's not true, to where people just leave I guess, I don't know, whatever, moving on. He says a command sergeant major is the senior non-commissioned officer in the Army battalion. He is the battalion commander's most trusted advisor. He is the standard setter for every other non-commissioned and junior enlisted soldier in the battalion. All eyes are on him. He's as close to a god on earth as a soldier could ever be. More importantly, taking on the duties of a CSM is a sacred trust. The 500 plus soldiers in your battalion are trusting you to train them and hold them to a standard where they can fight, they can win, they can survive in combat. Those soldiers put their faith, trust, and lives in your hands. I'll say it again. This is a sacred trust. Someone asked me in good faith whether or not Walz simply left one kind of service for a higher level of service in Congress. I thought long and hard about an appropriate analogy as an answer to that question and finally came up with one. What Walz did is the moral equivalent of a mother dropping off her 5 preteen children at an orphanage in the dead of night so she can run for Congress. Yes, it's that bad. Walz's problem was more than just abandoning his troops. It also reflects some sort of personal deficit in his character and makeup. For almost every professional soldier I have ever known, the idea of not going to war with his or her unit is a hateful thing. True military leaders are like that. The most dishonorable thing imaginable is to not go to war with your comrades. But not Tim Walz. He was a battalion command sergeant major, the most senior and important NCO in a battalion. And he bailed, ran, and hid rather than deploy with his soldiers to Iraq and do his duty. And then he finally says, I know right now I can hear my Democrat pals shouting, what about Cadet Bone Spurs? To which I easily say, Trump did not serve. Neither did Clinton, nor Obama, nor Biden, nor Harris. But cutting and running in the face of the enemy and abandoning the troops you were sworn to lead as their senior non-commissioned officer is 1,000 times worse than never serving at all. What do you guys make of that?
That sounds inflated. 1,000 times worse than never serving at all. Sounds inflated to me. It just honestly does. I don't begrudge the opinion at all and the emotion of the anonymous writer. I do begrudge the continued use, especially on the conservative side of the aisle, of Latin pseudonyms for things. Can we just be Jackson Pollock or something? I don't know, something different, an American sounding pseudonym, please, next time. But 1,000 times worse. My problem with this line of thinking, and again, that's the strong opinion of someone, and I take it seriously, is that I feel like every single time that somebody who has a military record runs for president or vice president, it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat, there is a heightened scrutiny of the military service in a pretty partisan way. Every time I've seen, in response to this, proper scrutiny of Tim Walz's record, people say, well, Tom Cotton has been overstating what he did, and J.D. Vance, wasn't really in the theater in Iraq, which I think is even more of a bogus attack. I think J.D. Vance served honorably. My default, especially as someone who's on the outside, is to thank people for their service and to want there to be not extra scrutiny on people who served in the military, but extra appreciation of people who served in the military. I'm not saying
we had that, all right, up until we found out he was a liar.
Yeah, I recognize that, and I'm just saying that it happens to everyone. This was my response to George W. Bush 20 years ago about deferments, which sounded plausible. At the same time, you know what? He did serve, and I did not.
In these crazy times, there is peace of mind in security. Security for our country, for our leaders, and for our families. But think about this. You are not financially secure if all your eggs are in one basket. Gold and silver can be an excellent way to diversify your savings as a hedge against inflation. They're a physical asset that's in high demand globally. And through Birch Gold Group, you can own physical gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Yes, you can diversify an old IRA or 401k for no money out of pocket into an IRA in gold and silver. Text MK to 989898 and receive a free no-obligation info kit and learn the role precious metals could play in your overall savings strategy. Again, text MK to 989898. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Text MK to 989898. Message and data rates may apply. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.